Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We just got done listening to our first track for Comfy Theme Week, and we're going to be moving into some special selections. Today's comes at us from Alex. It says you haven't done YOB yet, so this is a good one to start with. It's the final song from their newest album. I don't know what YOB is. That's an interesting band name. We're going to be checking out the song Our Raw Heart. We got a 14-minute track here, not some of the lengthiest stuff we've heard, but definitely requires getting some snacks, getting some water, and getting ready to listen to some good music. All right, let's go. So we're in 4/4. We have eighth note reverb. Yeah, really setting up this atmosphere. It's a bit melancholy, a bit pensive. They're doing this cool thing where they start on the downbeat, and then the second bar phrase actually starts on the and of 4 on the previous bar. Okay. Really blending that weight of metal with some of the psychedelic acoustic guitar. I guess it's not acoustic, it's distorted as well. It's almost sludgy. For some reason, I just thought this is what happens when you play a Creed song at quarter speed. I love his voice, his breath control there. He has a very nice vibrato. He doesn't use it all the time, but when he does... I love that chord rise up to resolve back at this. taking their time and sitting within this element they've created. One thing I do like about this slower tempo is it really allows you to feel a lot of the chords and the note combinations. Even on stuff like transitionary chords or passing tones, you really get to feel that relationship that these notes have and the textures that they're creating. This is interesting. They're emphasizing this 3-3-2 pulse, which is still 4-4. It's still an 8-beat phrase, but they're emphasizing beats 1, 4, and then 3 on the second bar. This whole song sort of blurring together for me. Have we reached a new section? I mean, we have that 3-3-2 idea. I think that's the one thing that really stands out to me. Interesting that even though we've shifted to this 3-3-2 pulse, that we still have that symbol emphasizing 2 and 4 all throughout this. It's an interesting little pushback rhythmically. subtle difference is like right now, the drums, the cymbals are accenting every downbeat. It almost feels like a slow metamorphosis from one idea to the next. Instead of having strict ideas of verse, chorus, it's just, each instrument slowly modifies their line over the time of the song. So it doesn't, a lot of the sections feel very similar. Guitar solo is interesting, the mix on it anyways, and it seems to be fluctuating between being the prominent sound and being drowned out by everything around it. Begun to incorporate the next element, it slowly faded in. Or maybe those are just overtones I'm hearing. So that was interesting. We had a fade in too, didn't we? Dang. Talk about a true fade out. That was about 45 seconds. And it went all the way down on my my audio visualizer. Even past what I could physically hear, there was still audio being pushed out. I'm going to play back the beginning real quick, just because I want to see how we started the song. Oh, we didn't start with the fade in. All right, so interesting stuff right here. Yeah, so I'm not really sure how to go about doing this because it It goes against a bit of how I typically look at music like this, but I'm going to take my best shot at this and see if I can't break it down a little. So, to start with, the song is, it still feels to me like a single idea. We have a beginning point, we have an ending point, and everything in the middle is just kind of an amorphous blob that we somehow go through to get from where we start to where we end, but there are no real clear delineating moments of change. Some of that is going to be attributed to the production, the mix. I would even say that we utilize similar foundational ideas like chord progressions throughout most of this song. There aren't any points of the track where I'm like, okay, we have entered a new section. Everything feels like we've shifted to a new idea. So part of that's just going to be the overall sound. Like I said, in the production, some of it's going to be in the foundational work. But also, I think what is important is I don't think anybody ever transitions ideas at the exact same time. There seems to be this idea of slowly phasing in new concepts. So the beginning of the song is fairly different from the end of the song. If I put those two back to back, I can hear stark differences between them. But I didn't really hear any moments of change throughout the song, so it feels like the song kind of stays the same, but it's just because the evolution of the song is so subtle and over such a large amount of time that I'd never really noticed, the changes at large because they are so subtle in the way they happen. In fact, I think that I mentioned none of the instruments change together. I think, we might be in one section and then one guitar starts playing something from the next section, and then the drum starts playing something from the next section, and then the bass starts playing it from the next section. And then, the next guitar finally moves into the next section. But this is done over minutes, is what it feels like to me. So it's this subtle, slow phasing into the next section. And since we have a 14-minute song with what I would probably line up to be 4 sections, if I'm being generous, I think I could easily make an argument for there only being 3 sections in the song. We have plenty of time for these lengthy transitions to occur. And once again, just because it's pulled out, I was going to say dragged out, but I don't want anything negative to be said about this. Because it's pulled out to such a length, that these transitions take place over, it's very difficult to hear the stark area where you can say, okay, this is the separating point between these two ideas. And it makes the song feel very similar all throughout because you have a lot of time to acclimate to what you're listening to, and the song never distinctly says, all right, we're in a new section now. It's a subtle thing into it. When I finished the song, I was really going to talk about how it is one idea. And it's one of those songs that takes a single concept and explores it. But after putting that beginning back to back with the ending, it made me realize just how different they are, even though the journey feels very samey. And when I finished the song, I thought everything felt samey. It really only was after I put them back to back and actually had that stark difference there without the gradual transition into, that I realized that there was actually a lot of change going on in the song. I just didn't notice it. And that right there is pretty cool. I wouldn't say that I enjoyed listening to it, but on an artistic level, I think it's really interesting uh, to create music like that, where it can change and evolve, but those evolutions are almost imperceptible, except for the most acute listener. Um, so I mean that's interesting right there. Um, what genre is this? partly because I'm intrigued, but partly because it's one of those genres that I don't I don't want to say I don't get. I sort of understand what's happening here. I understand why people listen to it. I didn't quite enjoy it though. It's not my cup of tea, as I would say. Um, what I hear is sludge, but without the heaviness and the weight, just really taking the tempo of sludge and marrying it with psychedelic. And I think, judging on my limited research and no exposure, I think this is stoner metal. I think stoner metal is sludge plus psychedelic. I could be off, but I think that's where this is at. In which case, as usual, I'm always interested to explore more of a genre. I don't think one song can ever be indicative of an entire body of collective works classified together. But there's a lot going on here that is not typically what I enjoy in music. This is a song for patient people, and that is not that is not me. I have patience, but when we stretch out repetition to 14 minutes, it's really pushing my patience. But with that said, let's dive into some of the things here. The vocals, I think, are interesting. I don't know if it's because of the tempo that made me think we were going to have some aggressive vocals, just because I've been introduced to sludge in the past, or maybe not. Maybe not. You know, hard sludge, but something sludge adjacent. We've listened to some slower tempo metal before. Um, so I was expecting something a little harsher, and it was interesting to hear these vocals, especially as strong of a air control that the vocalist has. I think the vocals have a bit of that sort of imperfection element to them, where the vocalist is not specifically aiming for perfection in note accuracy, really aiming for a perfectly not flat, not sharp note. There is a bit of wavering in there. It almost seems also at times to have that effortless element to it, where it's sort of low energy singing and delivery. But then there's these moments where the vocalist shines through with this very gorgeous wide vibrato. Um, and it's an interesting combination. To me it's almost contradictory, because the two styles seem to be on opposite ends of each other. You either have something that's closer to indie rock, where they play around with tonality in singing, versus pop music, which is where we tend to hear the more perfect vocals with nice vibrato and breath control. And it's those two ends mixed together. We have vocals that don't really care about being perfect, but then they also have these elements of perfection to them, of really strong training and virtuosity to the vocal performance. And it's really neat to hear the two of them paired. I think that's awesome. I love it, actually. It takes two of my favorite things about vocals. I love vocals that are clean and well done and expertly done, but I also love that more raw human vocal style. And hearing the two styles merged and taking a little bit from each side, I think works very well. I don't know if it does anything with the music, but in isolation, I really like what's going on with the vocals here. Um, and the mix of the vocals is sort of in the middle too. It isn't up at the top like we would expect from something more mainstream. It isn't above all the instruments, but it's not buried down like we see with a lot of metal bands. I gotta find a better group of music. Black metal, I suppose, is a specific genre that tends to bury the vocals a little bit. Oh, you know what else is in here? I mentioned psychedelic and sludge, but also a bit of like post-rock. This concept of staying with a single idea and just living within it and fully exploring a concept before moving on. And, on the listener side, really entering that state of trance or, meditation or whatever, and letting the music flood over you and just letting your mind, go or wander or, whatever people do when they listen to some of this hyper repetitious stuff. It's really a mix of all three of those, I would say. Um, it's just unlike post rock, post metal, which tends to play around with noise. This plays, I mean, actually, no, whoa, because this plays around with a lot with melody and harmony. I even mentioned specifically that one of the cool things about the slower tempo was that we could really hear some of these note combinations, these dyads and triads, and specifically even on passing tones or leading chords, we get these moments where we might get a little bit more color inside of our note relationships because it's more about we hit it for a beat and then we move on. And when we talk about faster songs, anything that's really 100 plus beats per minute, sometimes those leading elements are more of exactly what they are. They're passing tones. We barely get a chance to hear them before we move on. They help us transition from where we were into where we're going. But here, they really get to stay around, even though it's still only a beat. That beat is almost a full second. I'd say we're pretty close to 60 beats a minute right here. And you really get a chance to listen to it, even though it's short compared to everything else around it. Getting to hear it for a full second, you really get to hear some of the tones and characteristics and color that it's bringing to the table, and I absolutely love that. So there is elements of melody and harmony that perpetrate throughout the song, but the mix also gives it sort of a wall of sound idea. A lot of that comes from, I would say, the mix, but also the guitar tone. There is a lot of grit and crunch on the. There's two guitar tones. One's like a lead and one's more of a foundational work. I don't want to say chords because I don't know if they're specifically playing chords. But it's not the lead tone. They're usually playing lower notes than the lead. And it's more about setting the atmosphere rather than playing a melody. There is just a lot of grit and crunch in there that is hiding and removing some of the core guitar characteristics, and just leaving it with that crunch and grit. And then the mix is also kind of bringing everything together, compressing the sound a bit more. This song definitely has room to be more compressed, to be more wall of sound, but it also actually has room on the other end to be a bit cleaner. I would say it fits somewhere in between Cult of Luna and Billie Eilish. Is that a weird comparison? The mix is somewhere between that, between the super cleanliness of pop and then the gritty wall of sound. Everything comes together as one tone of post metal, and I think it walks a fine line there. I think I would rather have one or the other. There are moments here where it's clear enough for me to hear some stuff, but really wish that it was clearer. And then there's other times when I think they're really going for this enveloping sound, and I think that the instruments are just spread out a little too far to give that idea. So it's an interesting sound. I don't know if it's indicative of the genre or of this type of music or if this is a YOB thing all on their own. I don't. It's interesting. As with almost anything, the first time I've listened to it, I don't quite have the ears for it. I'm not acclimated to the sound. And like I said, here I think I would rather have one or the other. I think it don't I can't finish the sentence because I don't want to be negative about it. I want to say this and choose the right words. I feel like the idea, the mix itself, at least in my limited exposure to this type of music, is unique to YOB. If I heard this, this would be the first thing I thought. If I hear another band that sounds like this and has this sort of walking the line between clean and open mix and then dirty and compressed mix, I would think, yeah, this is very Yob like. So, in that sense, it works. Whether it's because it's the genre or because it's a specific sound, I've attributed it to this. So, the uniqueness factor is something that I don't think can be ignored. On the other hand, though, listening to it, I don't think the mix works well. I think it gets in the way of the two things it's trying to do. The clean aspects, I think, really could be cleaner. I don't think they're doing the song any favor by having some of these instruments be a bit separated from the others. And I think the fact that they're not all compressed together into a wall of sound is actually defeating some of the ideas that the song, I think, is really trying to sell with this all-enveloping sound. So that's just my opinion, though. With untrained ears for this style of music, for this mix, maybe as I listen to more of this, I'll be like, yeah, that worked perfectly. That's exactly what they should have done. But right now, I'm like, I wish it was just a little bit one way or the other. Even mix it up in some sections. If you want that extra cleanliness, make that vocals, or not the vocals, I think the vocals were actually a bit distinct. Make that melody line or whatever you want to stand out, push it up just a little bit more. And then when you really want to hone in on that wall of sound, bring everything together, because it feels like they use the same mix overall, and it sometimes it just doesn't work for some parts. Let's see, what else? I think that's going to be about it on this one. I think there was one more thing I wanted to talk. Oh, the solo at the end. I thought that was interesting. This is one of the parts that actually ties in with the mix very well. So the solo starts out very distinct, very separate from the rest of the instruments, and I kind of figured we were going to stay there. That's what solos do. Much like vocal tracks, usually, it's the core melody line. It's what the band and the engineer want to highlight. They put it in the spotlight of the mix so that everybody can hear. But the thing is it slowly got pulled down into the mix, and I'm not sure if it got more compressed and it got its volume was lowered, or if the band came up. I'd have to go back and listen specifically for that. But it was like the solo was being swallowed by this amorphous blob of music, and it's a very interesting visual to get. Um, I I'd have to listen to the song again. Maybe with vocals and kind of see where some themes are lying. I mean, our raw heart, the visuals of this audio visualizer. There's nothing I'm really piecing together here, but I do think it's an interesting design choice to go ahead and write a lead part that isn't already in the mix. It slowly gets in there. I don't think we've heard that before. I've heard vocals and solos that have been in a mix before. I've heard them when they've soared. That's pretty common. I don't think I've heard one get gobbled up by the music. That's it's actually really cool. So, yeah, I think that's gonna have to be it. It's an interesting song. Although I should say it's an interesting style. I don't know how much of what I said is unique to the song and how much of what I said could kind of be applied to whatever genre this is as a whole. But I'm uh, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. I wonder if there's anything that would be in the same category that I might enjoy. Because, like I found out with math rock this week, what I thought it was just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm actually finding that out with a lot of genres. That, when I get showcased these genres, when I get introduced to them, um, usually in one offs, not, doing a whole theme week, but maybe we do something that's not genre based and we end up hearing, a representative of the genre. I get an idea of what encapsulates that genre precisely. Like when we checked out Chan is very much math rock, but math rock has also evolved outside of that type of playing, and we got to explore that this week. And I found some stuff that I actually really enjoyed, despite most of the math rock stuff I've listened to previously uh, entertaining me and me really enjoying some of the core concepts, but the song itself bounced off me. And that's kind of what's happening here. I'm afraid that the tempo is going to keep me away from the genre. I'm really trying to think of anything that's on the slower end that I've just really enjoyed and dived into, but I can't think of any. So the tempo might be a thing, but maybe like a proggy-ish offshoot of whatever this is that changes the music up a little bit more often and seems less repetitious. I might really be able to get into that because there are some cool things going on here. It's just, you know, slow songs, dragging out concepts, and using repetition a lot are not usually elements that I typically enjoy in my music. It's something really has to hit me if it's going to use one of those three, but definitely all three and combined. All three combined. There's got to be something that really catches me. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Not my cup of tea, but some really cool things going on in here. So that's YOB, R Raw Heart. This is where you guys come in, though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this one or not. Anything that stood out to you. If you know what genre this is, I'm down for that. And if you know any branches of the genre, something that is close to this song, but maybe a little different, some aspects that you think I might enjoy, go ahead and hit me up with those recommendations as well. Above the comment section, there is a description box, and there is a link for Linktree. You can find all the stuff related to the channel in there, such as Patreon, Discord, Twitter, my email, special selections, all the stuff. It's in there. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. We'll be looking at another comfy song and some more special selections, I think. All right, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.